Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Brand, where we talk candidly about branding, business, and go wherever else the bourbon takes us. Today we're going to dive in a little bit more to who we are before we dig into more branding topics. And we're going to go there with the help of Fox River Straight Bourbon Whiskey from right here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's so good, we're going to have it at least a few times.
Yeah. But before we jump into it, we do want to say if you're enjoying this show, make sure to hit the subscribe button below
Please.
and click the little bell looking thing so you get notified of all new episodes that come out. So, with that, cheers.
Cheers.
All right, so what we realized is that in the last episode, we just jumped right into it and talked about, you know, um, 2019 coming to an end, but we didn't really get into like who the hell we are.
Yeah.
And so I think we both thought like that probably makes some sense, so people know who the hell these two guys are on here, other than just two
Yeah.
obviously alcoholics.
Alcoholic, generically awesome guys, I think is the takeaway from episode one.
So we've actually had we also have a podcast because we're just prolific like that.
Yeah.
And we decided what better way to describe ourselves, introduce ourselves, than answering some of the candid questions we ask every guest on the show.
Yep.
The Life on Brand podcast, definitely check that out, lifeonbrand.com.
Yep.
So we have 6 questions that we're just going to run through with each other here. I think we're actually both quite nervous about this.
A little bit. Yeah. We've been hosting these questions for a while, and I think the main reason we thought it'd be interesting, at least for the podcast guests that we have had in our audience, to hear us go through this section. We lovingly call it the slow burn, which seems perfect for whiskey.
Yeah.
But also, we've had a few people, maybe even during the episodes, but definitely after, a good chunk have been like, you all need to answer these questions after they've gone through it. So we thought it would be an interesting and maybe fair way to pay back some of our guests that have taken their time to go through the slow burn and put ourselves through it.
Right, yeah, and quick apologies to our friend Jonathan Goldstein, who has on multiple occasions come up to us and told us that he's going to interview us.
Yeah.
We did not give him a chance to do that. He can obviously still do it if he wants to, but he's not here.
Yep.
Also, keep in mind, we have no canned answers for these questions
No.
at all.
Which we would say if we did have canned answers, but like honest to God,
Yeah.
I think we're so busy hosting that I haven't really thought about them in
Yeah.
real time.
Yeah, the bourbon burns a little bit, and the questions will burn a little bit because we're both going to sit here off the top of our heads, come up with answers to questions we've asked 20, 30 plus people at this point.
Yeah.
So that should be fun.
Yeah.
So we'll jump into the first one, which is always a little kind of crazy. It's
Yeah.
the question of how do you define success? I'll let you take this one.
Thanks. We'll ease in. I think we're maybe everyone will feel a little bit better. We usually ease in with some more softball type
Yeah,
questions.
exactly.
We're just going right into it. So the philosophy major in me gets like real all over the place for this, but I'll try to be somewhat straightforward.
Trying to line that up.
Yeah. To me, the simplest way I can describe it is having a definition of success globally, so that you have something to aim for and then hit it. I think you can argue like if your goal in life is to rob a bank and you rob a bank, are you successful? For me, in the purest sense, I think you are.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always so much probably why we do the work that we do, centered around like purpose and definition of who you are in these things, is a way of like getting to the answer for this question. For me, that's always felt freeing, even if it's like, something small, like when I was younger, like being an athlete, having like a certain goal. Like it felt good arriving at that, and it felt like you knew what other work you needed to do to get there if you hadn't arrived at that. So for me, it always starts with, it's not a monetary thing. Like if someone wants to volunteer for 500 different nonprofits over the course of their life and they hit that, that's successful. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, it could be 5, but I think you've arrived at success if you have hit what you've aimed at. And the key I think for me is if you don't have a clear definition of that, it's very hard to be successful. I think that also allows me to get out of the mindset of, if you have $2 million, you've been successful. It's like,
Right.
Not necessarily. You can accident your way into money. It's hard to do, but it certainly has happened. So that for me is hopefully not a cop-out answer, but I think in the spirit of getting to know who we are, that's a big part of who I am, and therefore my definition of success.
Yeah, I will quickly cop out on this and say success is doing what you are passionate about. Just kidding. I don't mean that at all.
Just kite surfing.
Yeah,
at all
right.
times,
Just passion. I love what I do. But no, like I mean, that's not exactly the definition that I have for it, but not too far off. Where it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I think there's that. As human beings, like we want to understand like the meaning of life, like why we're here, and I think for me, with success is kind of being able to identify your why, like what like sure we're all like multi-layered, we all like have different dimensions to us. You can be a son, a brother, a sister, a father, just a business owner. So just finding that purpose in each of these areas,
Yeah.
and identifying like what it is. I think that ultimately leads to the finding that passion, being passionate about it, because I firmly believe in the idea that passion comes after the work, but you don't really know what to work for with a lot of dedication until you figure out that you're here for a reason. You got to figure out what that reason is, and when you can figure out that purpose, things just becomes a lot more a lot clearer, and that in itself is like being able to live that purpose is success, I think.
Yeah, and something fairly new for me. I guess this is where I'm used to having follow-up questions as the podcast host here, but maybe something we can spin off is like whether or not that like can change throughout your life. It popped into my head when you said like you could be a father, you could be whatever. I think a lot of people when they're 16 are not aiming to be a great father, but you might, hopefully when you have children for sure, but as you get older that might change and that might become part of your definition of success, or even like the reason,
Sure.
like your most important thing is being a great father when you have a child. So I think that's another really interesting point that I've thought of. I think once you get past a certain age, you're not just like, I want to be a successful lawyer or whatever your profession is. Like these other more complex things come in, and it doesn't mean there's no room for them, but it might change.
Yeah, I think there's an evolution to your purpose and figuring out what your purpose is, and maybe as you try things and experiment with it, like getting closer and closer to figuring out what that purpose is. And in my mind, I'm obviously not a father, so I can't be sure, but I would imagine that if I were a father, like my purpose as a father wouldn't veer off too steeply from my purpose of wanting to be a good husband, being a good partner with our clients, being obviously a good business partner with you. I think they thematically kind of stay within that same thing, but yeah, I think like there's the evolution of like over time, because I grew up wanting to be a doctor with that desire, wanting to help people. And I don't think that desire has changed. It's just like how that output. Because like that why is still the same. The how and the what has evolved and changed, and probably will. Like probably you ask us these same questions 10 years from now, like how the purpose has changed from year 1 of Huck Finch to year 10, and we'll probably still want to do the same thing from the core of it, but maybe in very, very different ways.
I think that's just been a fascinating part of this like sort of journey. Is it's you also could be wrong. Like you could have like chosen a thing. It's not a waste of time to do that, but like I think that gets back to like at least you wrote down or somewhat consciously identified what your aim was. You may arrive there and not have been as fulfilled as you thought you were, but you were successful in that pursuit, and now you are doing these other things. So it does get complicated. I think like you were talking about that core, like who you are, especially once you get to a certain age, like it probably won't dramatically change in terms of your global sort of like approach to life, but it could change in terms of, like you said, the what and how, like how you get there. You mentioned like you were going to originally be a doctor. I was going to be a lawyer. This would be a very different show. Or would it? Or would we just have like a lot more degrees behind our name?
It might even be more fun. Like you have a doctor and a lawyer drinking bourbon, talking about whatever.
Yeah, it would definitely be called like a doctor and a lawyer walk into a bar or something
Yeah.
with Bourbon and Brand. But
Yeah.
we might be talking about the same things.
So that was one question down.
Yeah.
So that was kind of rough. So I do really feel bad for all of our
Yeah.
guests from the
I feel
show.
like we should roll like a 3-minute kitten video just in between each
Yeah.
question. But
I'm almost regretting having these questions honestly for like our guests because like we knew we were going to answer these questions, but our guests don't know. So they're literally I just put into like
right.
in the lion's den with these questions.
I think this is us just like rationalizing it. It's like it's easier for them than for us. We've put ourselves in a harder position.
Yeah. All right.
It just
So
makes us feel like experts or something.
and since you took you dove on the grenade on the last one,
Yeah.
I'll go first on this.
Yeah.
The next question that we ask our guests is a moment of self-doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, like I think the biggest doubt for myself was going all in into Huck Finch as what we do, mostly because this isn't our background. I mean, we obviously do brand strategy, we do visual design,
Mm-hmm.
but neither one of us studied this at all. We don't have the foundational principles that a lot of people go into this who do really great work.
Yeah.
And it comes out because of the fact they went to school for
Yeah.
this, they have the color theory, they learn all this stuff. We
Yeah.
had to learn this stuff on the spot and on the go.
Yep.
So the doubt was like, can what we put out there be as good as these people? The cocky a-hole in me says yes.
Yeah.
But there was that doubt, and then the other doubt for myself personally was, I know you've always kind of had a desire to like want to start a business, and that's
Mhm.
usually a question we kind of ask somebody is,
Yeah.
where did this come from? And honestly, that was never really something that was there for me. Like
Mhm.
I was never, I guess I was entrepreneurial in like little ways.
Yeah.
Um, in the most like genuine sense of entrepreneurial, of like just I wanted something and I would go get it, but it wasn't like, oh, I would start a bunch of businesses like a lemonade stand.
Right. Right.
So like starting a business was never a thing I wanted to check off. So for myself was like the doubt of could I be, because of not having that desire, would I be a good business owner? So,
Right. Right. Yeah. It is. It is like I certainly some of that resonates with me. I think one of the things at least that helped me with that particular self-doubt is that we both had a lot of background in solving problems and we're both passionate about solving problems.
Mhm.
So at least that's the way I slept at night in the early days, especially. Like it does feel like when you walk in, like who the hell are we to be doing this? But I think that's something we've learned from asking this question to a ton of people is like it's just sort of a present thing. We've talked with people who are like literally like dream guests and things in these areas where we're like these people did all of the things, and you'll still get a very similar kind of answer in that day-to-day
Yeah.
thing, which I think the podcast is sort of like medicine in a way for us. Like it hopefully can help other people, but that's been something that's like eased that for me is like literally the presence of asking that question to other people. But for me, I think very similarly in that way, self-doubt. But one of the things that I'm always like nodding my head on the podcast and people can't see, so right now I'm gonna nod my head and people can, is it's like every day. When it's almost like that question does need a frame or a timeline for entrepreneurs because you're almost always doing something new.
Right.
Like every time we talk about like legal structure and accounting and all of that stuff, there's so much of it is new. But for a specific time when I experienced self-doubt, I mean, it's hard not to say like the one that jumped out is the same. It's when we took the ultimate leap to doing this full time. It's like, this is a bad idea. I should clean up my resume,
Right.
go back to getting a normal job. But for me, we had been doing it on the side for a while, and you take a couple of deep breaths, and hopefully it steadies out. But that was definitely it, and still happens every now and then for sure. By every now and then, I mean like all the time. Starting a web show. It's a very recent one of self-doubt.
Yeah.
Social media, I think, for us is another good example. Obviously, I could go on and on about different self-doubt, but it's like, who the hell wants to listen to us? Maybe no one.
Yeah.
But we're doing it, so I think it does feel good. It just try it and put it out in the world, and over the first several months and years of doing this, I think it's gotten a little bit easier. To even though you feel like you're like, oh, this is the process almost.
Yeah, I think the thing that has been consistent with everything that we've learned from our guests on Life on Brand and just from our own like curiosity of wanting to learn is it's the doubt never goes away. Like there should always be a sense of doubt because it means you care about something enough where you worry about it not being successful because you have a desire for it to be something more and you want to do something with it.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing with stress. Like a lot of people want to be stress free, but you don't want to be stress free because stress is a good thing. It triggers something in you, like that fight or flight,
Yeah.
and you can fight for something that you believe in and know it's right, or you can run away from it. And that's the same thing with doubt. I think it's that's a little flag that says like you have doubt because this matters to you.
Yeah, yeah, 1,000%. I always think of the Bill Russell thing.
Yeah.
I grew up playing sports, and for those who don't know, Bill Russell sort of infamously or famously threw up before like every game because he cared so much he wanted to win, like that was the level, and he was fine once he did it, but that was like every game, like one of the greatest athletes in the history of mankind, like he still had that. And I think I can remember that in grade school basketball, and like certainly every time we do something new I have that, but as you do it more, like you just kind of recognize like this is my version of throwing up before the game, but I really enjoy what's right after it. So that took me a really long time to know that what came after it was not only going to be okay, but like fun and rewarding because I was working on things that I like gave a shit about.
Yeah. So I think this question always leads in well into the next two questions, which is the something that we found surprisingly easy and surprisingly difficult about starting a business. Mm-hmm. So if you want to take the surprisingly easy, I'll take the surprisingly difficult first.
Sure. I think for me, being somewhat introverted, building a network of people who genuinely wanted to help us was like shockingly easy to me.
Yeah.
Like, previous experiences, it wasn't really something that either of us, but certainly I spent time doing. And I think to this day, it still like is shockingly surprising, like how willing like the vast majority of people, especially other business owners, but just people in general are to help you in whatever it is. Like little things, big things. That's, the thing I'm most grateful for, but also just really like honestly shocking. Like that was an easy one for me once you asked the question.
Yeah, I will piggyback on that and say like that was something I found surprisingly easy as well. And just like you, I'm also very introverted. Mm-hmm. I also think I'm very awkward. Like I'm terribly awkward in my mind, and maybe that leads to me being more awkward. But I agree that like the most shockingly easy thing is the fact that like once you put yourself out there, well, which we really try to do this year, kind of building our network within the community that we live in. If people like vibe with you, like they're going to say yes to things like wherever they can help you, either that's helping funnel business your way or sharing this video. Probably we'll have people like we literally met this year probably share this video with their social network because we built a genuine connection with them, and I think that was probably maybe why I would imagine why it was easy to like connect with people is that I think like we are who we are. Like I think like that's essentially one of our core values is we're an acquired taste. Right. Just like bourbon, you're not gonna like bourbon right away, but you give it enough tries, you either like it or you don't. Yep. And we're kind of an acquired taste, and if we are putting out the vibes that you like, then you're putting out the vibes that we like, and it just goes hand in hand. And I think the other part of that is like we also try to put helping others first too. Like I don't ever go into a conversation with anyone saying like we're gonna try and take advantage of them, we're gonna get something out of them. It's always like how can we help this person?
Yep. Yeah, and I think too that's something we're I think lucky that we didn't start as like 18-year-olds in a garage or whatever. Is we had been through like other businesses, and I think we always knew like, and maybe directly discussed this, but it was at least an inherent thing where it's like we're not gonna take all this risk and do all of the hard work of like building something from the ground up, uh, and then be something we're not. Like it needed to be us, whatever that was. And at least for me, it's like it would be fine if we failed doing that. Kind of going back to the aim thing, like I would be able to like stomach failing because but we took the route that was like truly the one that we wanted to take. It's like that's fine. Like it happens in business all the time. Not everything is a $1 billion success, but going out and failing in whatever definition you have of that, and accidentally creating a business that like we wouldn't even have wanted a job at. It's just like I think we both know like that was something neither of us were interested in. Where it's just I wouldn't have had the wherewithal to think that way without some experience up front. I would have just been like, we're doing it. We're entrepreneurs. We're whatever gets us money wins. Right. And this is a different type of effort, which has helped with those things for me.
Yeah. So then on the flip side of easy is the surprisingly difficult, and as I will live up to my promise of going first on this, is I guess for myself the surprisingly difficult thing is being able to turn off what we do. Like I think like we're both active. Like I run, you rock climb. We're both in loving relationships. But I think for myself, like I found it difficult, especially in this year, to be able to like switch the brain off from I'm Hien, the business owner of Huck Finch, keeping this going, and then prioritizing things that are not this. Mm-hmm. And I've taken little steps here and there to try to get to that point where I can like balance it. That idea of balancing better. Like I'm not thinking about from a work-life balance, but just a life balance in general. Yeah. Like there should be some space between me and the business, because then it allows me to. I feel like I get more creative in that way, because when I run, for example, I'm in a zone, and then I think about things and like I have an idea, it sparks it. I think when you're constantly in the grind, you can't see the forest from the trees. Mm-hmm. So little things like Saturdays, I don't even remotely come close to a computer. Yeah. After a certain hour, like my phone is nowhere near me, and like the phone doesn't even come into the bedroom. And I think there's things that we carried with us I carried from me from a practice, so like from our chill pill days. Yep. From like living a happy, fulfilling life. But that has been difficult. This has been a conversation with myself of like how can I be better at managing the business was like other aspects of my life, because as much as I love the business, there are other things I love about life as well.
Yeah, that one is right up there for me as well. But in the interest of not saying the same thing, I think I don't know if it was surprising, but most difficult thing is prioritizing what I work on. Now that it's like, you can kind of like, we can choose to work on whatever we want for however long we want, and those things, and that's awesome, and it has a certain amount of freedom in it, but there's like, just idealistic things or whatever it is, like staying focused on the right ones. Right. It's almost like by doing this, you open up your day to like an infinite amount of possibilities, which is amazing. But then it's also, at least for somebody wired like me, like really finding a system and an approach to like, this is great, yes, but like this needs to get finished. Like it's just critically important to like finish things, even if you thought of a better way, or it's like getting things done is so important to moving the business forward, versus just having just all these competing ideas that may all be amazing. They're not all amazing, but they might feel amazing. That's been like big challenge. I think when you move to your own thing, you're like, at least kind of in the back of your mind, like this is all just like stars are gonna align every day. So that's been for me. Maybe maybe I kind of knew that coming in because just of who I am as a personality, but I still would say it's been surprisingly hard relative to even what my expectation
Yeah,
was.
it was definitely eye opening to like see like to be able to walk in someone else's shoe and then like, yeah, this is overwhelming because there's no limit to what you can do as your own business owner. And I think listening to you talk, it made me think of something that we both kind of realized at the end of the year when we kind of like were diagnosing how the year went, how can next year be better, is surprisingly difficult was not only the fact that we can work on whatever we want, the thing that we knew that was most critically important, that initial lift for ourselves, like that first step, was surprisingly difficult.
Yeah.
Because I think we're both like ambitious, like we want to get things done, we're driven,
Yeah.
but sometimes we said, man, that first step is just so fucking hard.
Yeah.
And but I think like the fact that we like took the time to realize that and like so, especially at the end of this year, we've been really trying to prioritize what to do for next year. Like
Yeah.
just always kind of having that frame of mind, like okay, this is hard for us. Like what's the first thing we need to do for that initial lift, as you put it? Like okay, this all sounds really great. Like but what do we need to do right now
Right.
to get this thing just going, to get
Yep.
this thing in motion? So I think just for the two of us, I think that was kind of something we both realized.
Yeah.
Just that first fucking step.
Yeah.
It's just hard. I think probably for most people as they're in this journey too, and they're like, yeah, I know what I need to do, but
Yeah.
I just gotta take that first step. It's kind of like Indiana Jones and like the Last Crusade when you have to take that first step into the unknown. There, it's like
Yep.
that's kind of
Yeah.
the most difficult thing. Has been like, yeah, we're entrepreneurial, but man, that first fucking step is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. That step, and then the one where you like put whatever it is in public.
Yeah.
It's like the in between is all like can take forever and never have anything happen. But like those are definitely the challenging thing. Another thing that was like kind of almost like more comical that I thought of while you were talking, especially as it relates to like again not work life balance, but just like things you do to get away from just being work like oriented all the time, is it's still hard for me to like realize that 9 to 5 isn't like necessarily a work schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So like you mentioned like climbing or working out or whatever, it's like if we don't have something else happening, it's still hard for me to be like I could go for a run at like 12:45 in the afternoon
Right.
because it's a perfectly fine time
Yeah.
to do it, like
I'm not gonna stop you.
yeah, it's like no one's doing that, but it's like so many years of just being like this is like work time, and for the most part it still is. But that's one of the great things about doing this is, if you don't have any conflict on your schedule and you're totally fine to get your work done or do it at night because you're more productive or whatever, it's like knock that run out. You don't have to do it at like 5 in the morning to get it done before the
Right.
workday starts. So I just thought of that as you mentioned. It's like I don't know why that's just a sort of self-imposed
Yeah.
thing, but
Imposed.
you're getting
It's
rid of
'cause
one
of
of the benefits of doing
Yeah.
this.
Because of the fucking kids in the Industrial Revolution. You gotta
That's
keep.
right.
You gotta think about the kids.
Right. Now let's go and talk about the Industrial Revolution for 55 minutes.
Yeah. As a history major, I probably could.
We could go for a while.
Yeah, we can go for a while on that. But so we'll save the hardest question I think that we have for everybody for the end, and I think
most important.
And I think you know what question that is. So
Yeah.
we'll move right into the next question, and
Yeah.
which is, if you can ask a business owner or an entrepreneur one question, what would that question be?
Oh man, this is the first one I'm like
Yeah.
really pausing on. I think it's fortunate in that because of the podcast, I've gotten to ask a lot of them just off the cuff. But I would say what are I honestly I would ask them like what, as I think about it, like what is the most important like habit that you've developed as an entrepreneur and business owner that's just like served you well, like the tried and true thing. It might not be the hardest thing or whatever, but what is the like thing you do sort of every day without fail?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's something for like the self-care part, or it's something that helps you manage your team or helps you be more productive. I think that's always just interesting, and it's almost like the smallest habit with the most reward type
Yeah.
of a thing. Like something you do in 5 minutes, or you get up and work out right away. I think that's really interesting to me because like you pulled out as like your most surprisingly difficult thing. It's like, what is the trigger to kind of like help switch into family mode if that's what your jam is, or self-care mode, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that's just interesting, and it could be something totally out of bounds I'm not thinking about. Like, I always eat oatmeal every morning, just gets me
Right.
going, but I think that's probably the question that I would ask.
Yeah, I will look at the viewers and recommend that you ask yourself this question yourself. It's like, what is this one thing that you do every day to
Yeah.
kind of get you going? I guess a question I would ask, somewhat related to the initial lifting, actually, it is entirely the initial lifting, is like, how do you typically go about like breaking things down to figure out what that first little thing you need to do is to move something forward that it's important. We have our little method. We think through like the triple dip. That's kind of helped us to help prioritize. But like, how does somebody else like, how do you prioritize that first little thing that you need to do? That's kind of like essentially that keystone habit. Of like, it just opens up the floodgates. That okay, this is a thing now.
Yeah.
Like and just to kind of handicap it to say like you can't just say like just do it. Like like I just do it. Like fuck that. That's not how that works. Like we can say that. But that's not how that works. So like, what do you do to yourself? Like putting yourself in that mindset. Do you draw something on the whiteboard? I don't know, do you record something and just put yourself out there? So like by the end of the day, I'm doing this, or if not, then you can shame me.
Yeah.
Like,
Clearly, that should have been my question, since my surprisingly difficult thing is prioritization. Obviously, I should be asking that question.
Yeah, I could just be, so everybody, from now on, Matt's going to just be laying shit out there, and if he doesn't do it, you can just shame him like Cersei Lannister style, full on Game of Thrones.
That's right. Just walk of shame.
Yeah, nude, just walking down.
Yeah. We'll release that episode. Never.
Yeah, I don't think YouTube would allow that.
Yeah.
All right, so we have come to that moment that is the most difficult question of
like
the full bird.
Dreading it. Yeah.
The question is, what is one song that defines you? And just to let everybody know, this is really hard for both me and Matt because we are both music guys. Like Matt like promoted musicians. I was a trombonist, jazz trombonist at that. So this is hard. Like to sum up a song and to sum our lives up into a song.
I'm just gonna.
Yeah, you're just gonna.
For the next 15 minutes, I'm gonna just be milking this last sip. So
I'll go ahead and
if you have it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and dive on this grenade.
Buy me some.
Okay, so I'm gonna cop out. I'm gonna say 2 songs.
That's fine.
All right, so
we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, they're basically the same. It's the same pretentious song.
Yeah.
But all right, so as I mentioned, I was a jazz trombonist growing up, so jazz has been very influential on my life. So my one song that defines me as a jazz lover is John Coltrane's "Giant Step."
Mm-hmm.
I just absolutely love that song. I can listen to it all day long. When you break the song down, it's just. I think what I realized about these 2 songs I was gonna say. The other song is Radiohead's "Videotape" from In Rainbows. So those 2 songs are probably might define me, and I think why I picked those 2 songs is that one, they're both great songs. You can listen to them all day long. I suggest people do. Definitely check them out on Spotify. We should put together we have multiple.
We haven't told anybody.
Yeah.
We just curate songs.
Yeah.
But
we have 2 playlists that we've curated, painstakingly curated over time. So definitely check those out.
Yeah.
They're available, and we can link them.
Sure. Yeah.
But for me, those 2 songs, like what I love about them is that they're just the high level of musicality in each one of them, and they're unexpected. Like you hear them, you like them, but when you break them down, you start to realize like there's surprises that these musicians put themselves through to play these songs, and they just kind of keep pushing themselves to do something musically beautiful. Starting with Giant Steps, it's called Giant Step for a reason because the way that John Coltrane composed the song with like the different chords and how it jumps around the circle of fifths.
Yeah.
The whole music theory thing. And for In Rainbows with a videotape is, if you do listen to it, kind of sounds like a funeral dirge with Tom York just playing 4 quarter notes on the piano. And when you listen to it, you think that the piano is on a downbeat, but in fact the piano is syncopated. It's the upbeat, which is really crazy because they don't have to do that. Yeah. They did not have to do that. Right. They just literally did it because they wanted to challenge themselves to see, like, can we play these things that you'd expect on a downbeat, like a bass, the bass drum and the piano on the upbeat, which is totally counter to what the brain wants to do.
Yeah.
To me, like the and yeah, to me those two songs are what define me. I think just kind of like I just want to do something a little unexpected. It seems conventional, but there's a little kind of something to it if you really dive deeper.
Yep.
Like that's kind of what I hope people get out of Huck Finch. Like it seems obvious at the top, but like they're doing something uniquely different on the bottom.
Yeah. I still don't have a clear answer on this, but I do have a clear answer as to why I don't have a clear answer, I think, which is most of the songs that I like from a lyrical standpoint are very sad. And I'm not a very sad person, so then it's kind of like, does that describe me? But what it is kind of like, I'm not a big lyrics person. I'm big into
Hmm.
like how a song feels or sounds like. So the song, this is why I think this question is so interesting because it's not necessarily my favorite song, but it's a song that pops into my head when this question gets asked, which is just "The Thrill Is Gone" by BB King and others, but I think the BB King version is the one I grew up with, and it's a song that pops into my head
Hmm.
like without like prompt. I could not like have listened to it for a really really long time. And without going into like a huge musical reason why, similar to that is there are live versions of it, there's like studio versions of it, and even outside the BB King version, it's the same song, but it's played like, to me, it's like one of the rawest, most emotional, like in terms of how it's played, with very few notes put in very particular spots for like sort of maximum like result. And I think that's always been interesting to me for a couple of reasons. Again, non-music theory-ish reasons, but it's the use of space to create things that are like powerful.
Yeah.
So not like sort of overdoing it. Like I have a little guitar in my background, which is like you try to learn to be technical and fast and do all these like crazy things, but they aren't really that great to listen to. And then there's like a BB King like "Thrill Is Gone" type of blues song, and it's like 4 or 5 notes, but played with like the precision and perfection of it. And then the mysterious part of it is the other part. It's the amazing use of space in between these like perfectly placed things, and then the fact that like Albert King could play it as well. Still obviously recognizable as what the song is, even if there were no lyrics there, but there's like still personality and tone differences to it. So I love the idea that there are very few notes used. There's a lot of space that's used just as powerful as the notes, and there's still plenty of room for personality and style in it. So that song to me is almost a quintessential blues song, and then it's an amazing thing in terms of creativity, I think, to tie into like maybe why it describes things. We talk about constraints all the time. Like there's only two of us running this business by design. It's like, so maybe that's 2 notes that we can play.
Right.
What can we do with that? So a long-winded way of like, I think that's how it ties in and why I appreciate that song and connect with it so much, hopefully within the confines of what this question is after. It just kept coming up over and over to me, like versus songs that are like my favorite songs. So different. I think that's why this is such a challenging question,
Yeah.
because it's not necessarily your favorite song. It could be, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily, and that's a hard, it'd be easier to answer my favorite 5 songs than the 5 songs that define me most.
Right.
Subtle difference.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard question.
I'm sure this is the part, like everyone, we should just put a direct link to skip forward to for our past guests on the podcast. At least I feel like I squirmed by far the most on the song question than on what is success, which is amazing.
I know we definitely had the conversation multiple times about what is the song that you're going to say on this, because we knew we were going to do this at some point.
Yeah.
Because again, so many people have asked us at this point, but we have both struggled with this one.
Yeah.
And I think the other one that I was going to say was Dave Brubeck's like Blue Rondo, for again just like I think that the historical aspect of it, and then all 3 of these songs for me consistently have just a historical implication of like what it means to music history. And I can think, going back to the success question, of wanting to have some sense of leave a legacy of like creating purposeful brands and show like purposeful brands. It's the way to do business. Like
Yep.
doing good is good business, and this shouldn't be weird. This should be the absolute norm.
Yep.
And any business that doesn't do good should be ostracized and should fail because they're not giving anything back to the world other than the desire of just making more money.
Yeah.
So,
Now I'm just like probably like
Yeah,
reverse
we're
engineering a cool
making
story
sense.
for me,
Yeah,
but I'm
for
thinking
sure.
about it's like a song that's maybe one of my favorite songs is "I Want You" by the Beatles, and what it has in common with like "The Thrill Is Gone" or something like that. Again, very few notes, very few words. For me, like placed sort of perfectly, like just let's just say they're these purposeful uses of music. They're not the most technically difficult songs to recreate, but let's go with that as some sort of very well thought out, crafted answer for myself. We'll
Yeah.
edit out all this in between part.
Yeah, I had an idea. What we should do is curate another playlist of all the songs that all our guests have said.
Yeah.
The simplest one is Dave Stewart because
Right.
that dude
Yeah.
gave 0 songs.
Could we use like just white noise?
We could.
Yeah.
Just straight white names for him. Just
Yeah.
nothing there.
Yeah.
Just pure silence
Yeah.
for Dave Stewart.
We can.
So that's for you, Dave.
Yeah, we'll philosophically go into like, is white noise a song or is it nothing?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, and we will tease you by saying like that's a topic for another episode
Yeah,
of Bourbon on Brand. So at this point, you should know a little bit more about both these two bozos who you've been listening to for the last, I don't know, how long you've been doing this. We'll try to edit out as much of all the ramblings in between. But
Right.
if you're at this point, thank you for sitting through and listening to us answer these dumb questions. We highly suggest you listen to our podcast guests on Life on Brand answering these questions because we got heavy hitters like Jason Fried on there, but also probably some unknowns to you, like the two co-founders of the Mushroom Factory.
Yep.
And they all have really great answers. We really want to humanize the entrepreneurial journey and experience. So definitely do check that out. And see you guys on the next episode of Bourbon and Brand.
Yeah, and please subscribe to something we're doing.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
If you're-
Buttons somewhere.
Yeah, if you're here, you might as fucking well, right?
Yeah,
Because
right.
you wasted a lot of time listening to the two of us, so you might as well subscribe.
Yep. Subscribe, and also like we want this to be as engaging and interactive as possible. So there are branding questions, business questions, song questions, I guess. Please comment. Let us know. We would love to tackle the things that are most on your mind. And feel free to suggest your favorite bourbon as well. We're gonna switch it up at some point,
Yeah.
and we'd love to hear what you guys drink and what you think. There's a hashtag. Is that a hashtag?
Yeah.
Anyway.
What do you think? What do you drink?
Until next time.
Peace out.
See you guys. Thanks for watching another episode of Bourbon and Brand. Be sure to leave your questions in comments below so we can get to them in a future episode.
And make sure to subscribe to the show by clicking subscribe below and turn on the bell to get notified of all future episodes of the greatest freaking show about bourbon and branding. Cheers.